Thank you for joining us in today's Connection Point End Times News Briefing podcast, and hope you're doing well and having a wonderful week. Now, in today's update, there are several key news items that I'd like to draw your attention to. One of them came out of the Times of Israel that talks about how Israel reported to strike several cities across Syria. An Israeli airstrike caused damage to sites in southern and central Syria late Tuesday. It's the first attack attributed to Israel in over a month, and according to Syrian state news agency, the air defense system managed to shoot down some of the Israeli missiles which were fired from the direction of Lebanon after 11:30 p.m. So when you've seen this sort of reports, and there's even the report that's talking about how the violent explosions were felt in Damascus and around the city, followed by Israeli strikes on other military positions. So you see these sort of reports and what's going on there. You know that we're getting closer to not only the Ezekiel 38 scenario, but also you're always thinking of Isaiah 17 prophecy, how the city of Damascus will turn to ruins. And so we're getting close, my friends, and so it's one of those things that we're on the cusp of seeing the fulfillment of these situations biblically. Also, in dealing with Israel, which is a good report here, and talking about the U.S. is committed to replenishing Iron Dome. So they were happy to help with the missile defense system for Israel. They've put in a request of $1 billion in emergency funding for Iron Dome following 11 days of fighting with Gaza-based terrorist groups, which launched more than 4,000 plus rockets at Israel territory. So the U.S. Secretary of State's reiterated that the Biden administration is that Israel has the right to defend itself against the rockets fired upon them. So that is a positive side to what is going on within the U.S., even though the administration really doesn't have a love for Israel. They're definitely wanting to push the Palestinian state and also wanting to join the Iran nuclear deal. So obviously that's a slap in the face to Israel. And even just the other another report is talking about how the Biden administration refuses the term of Abraham Accords. So everything that the positive stuff that President Trump did and putting these peace agreements together and the Abraham Accords, they are trying to erase those terms from the pre-existing documents, statements, and official communications and replaced with the term normalization agreement. So they're trying to do every way with anything that the Trump administration did or the biblical account of what is right. So they are obviously pushing a left-wing agenda, progressive agenda, wanting to see a two-state solution. They're wanting to, like we said, to rejoin the Iran nuclear plan and deal, which is just a disastrous for all nations. And but the Biden administration, aims to sink the accords by penalizing Israel and its peace partners for getting too close and returning to the Palestinians to center stage in order to prepare the ground for re-entering the Iran deal. So that is kind of what is going on. And speaking of the Palestinians, there's an interesting report, not surprisingly, but we've seen this before, and how the Palestinians support and fund and give money to families of terrorists who murder Israelis. So in this particular report talks about how Palestinian Authority on Sunday handed the family of Palestinians who murdered two Israelis the sum of $42,000. And so the money was provided by President Abbas to complete the payment of the price. And so the family's house that was demolished by the IDF, according to Palestinian official news agency. Now to a kind of a separate news item, but still dealing with end times. It's, as we've talked about many times before, about the earthquakes in various places. And this particular news report that talks about the seismic activity along the west coast within the U.S. specifically, how there is this continually increase, according to the Geological Center They talk about in one 24-hour period over the last weekend or so, more than 600 earthquakes of at least a magnitude of 1.0 and above, and the largest being a magnitude of 5.3. So we do see the frequency and the magnitude of earthquakes increasing in these end times, and it's not just there in California, but it's all over the world. We're starting to see the convulsing of the world. You're seeing more volcanoes erupting. You're seeing more natural disasters occurring. So you're seeing more of these end-time, scenario activities taking place. And yes, these sort of events have always been, but not the frequency nor the magnitude of it. And then the last interesting report that talks about the 74% of California and 52% of the West U.S. Now in exceptional drought. So the drought conditions in California remain at a record high, with most of the state is now classified in extreme or exceptional drought, reflecting conditions across the Southwest, according to the new report on climate scientists. Now, I do believe there's some of a climate issue here, but I more so believe it's more of a spiritual issue than anything else. Because of the anti-God, anti-Bible leadership in these states, within every major city, especially in California, and also you see the governor and his stance against the Bible, against Christians and conservative values within these states around, and it just seems like the Lord has removed His hand of blessing, and so these issues continue to increase. And really, one of the greatest threats to the existence of a state or like this or within a country is its left-wing liberal ideology and philosophy of life and values. They're the supporters of the cancer culture that has ripped through societies, that has been so disastrous. In fact, they just need to cancel themselves, would be so much better. They're the supporters of the LGBT plus community agenda, which is so harmful and damaging to society as a whole. And you see how hard they're trying to indoctrinate, reprogram society through media, movies, TV, through the school system is their biggest objective. And how they're trying to brainwash and indoctrinate kids, even from preschool all the way through university. And they want to, for everyone to accept and that this is normal, but it will never be that way because that's not how God has created us. And so the more they're pushing this idea, this ideology, this way of life, the further society is getting away from the Lord and from doing what is right. So as believers, we need to be praying, seeking the Lord, praying for deliverance, for the light and the truth of the gospel to shine. We need to continue to speak out the truth. To speak the truth in love and grace, we need to be as consistent in our lifestyle as Christians so that way we're living it out. We're being a good witness for the Lord, and that we can't be accused of being hypocrites, where we say one thing and we do another. We got to be as consistent to our message as possible. So, my friends, stay focused on the Lord, stay in the Word, have that devotional time with the Lord, where you're reading the Bible on a consistent basis, reading through, letting it minister to you, and pray without ceasing, and be a servant of the Lord today. Amen. Until next time, God bless.